Hello everybody, this is Mrs. Snook with 4.5 day 2. So we're going to finish off 4.5 today. And our objective is to sketch the graph of cosine functions, again both the basic and with transformations. And we're also going to start with a graph and we're going to write the equation of the trig function using just the graph. So first of all, let's get graphing our cosine functions. So I'm going to show you what the cosine parent function looks like. Again, let's do a theta y table. And I'm going to pick the same points, 0, pi over 2, pi, 3 pi over 2, and 2 pi. Now the difference between sine and cosine is the y coordinates. The cosine of 0 is 1. Cosine of pi over 2 is 0. Cosine of pi is -1. Cosine of 3 pi over 2 is 0. And the cosine of 2 pi is 1. And you can look these values up on the chart in your book. So then if I go ahead and sketch my graph, instead of starting at 0 and going up like I would for the sine, I'm going to start at 1, but I'm going to go down. 0. So here's what it looks like. Oh, that's an awful graph. Let's try again. And again, try to make it smooth, not like a V shape. And so just like with the sine graph, we can go ahead and we can set the scale to match our graph. We need to know A, B, C, and D. We're going to label the top line, the center line, the bottom line. We're going to use the period. We're going to use the same critical points. The only difference is going to be the shape of the graph, but everything else will be the same. So let's do this one. We have y equals 3 cosine of 2 times theta minus pi plus 1. So A equals 3, B equals 2, C equals pi, remember change the sign on it, and D equals 1. All right, so top line D plus absolute value of A is going to be 5. So this is 5. Center line is just D, so that's 1. Bottom line is going to be 1 minus 3. Which gives you -2. And the period, 2 pi over b. So 2 pi over 2 equals pi. And then our starting value is c, and c equals pi. So when I set up my graph, right here is going to be pi. And then my period 2 pi wide. So over here I'm going to have 2 pi. And let's do our critical points. C plus 1/4 period gives me pi plus 1/4 pi. So I get 5 pi over 4. And then C plus half a period is going to be pi plus pi over 2. So I get 3 pi over 2. C plus 3/4 of a period is going to be 7 pi over 4. And then C plus a period is going to be 2 pi. So let's go ahead and label these. So 3 pi over 2, 5 pi over 4, 7 pi over 4. I've got my center line and top and bottom labeled. So I'm ready to graph. Cosine starts at the max, goes down to the center line, down to the min, back to the center line, back to the max. So there you have it. There's our cosine graph. Let's do one for a delta math. It's going to work the same way as we did with the sine. I'm going to have to set up a scale. A equals 3, B equals 2, C equals 0, and D equals 5. So let's get period first. Period is 2 pi over 2, which equals pi. So when I go into delta math, I'm just going to put pi in there. And then for my y-axis label, I'm going to go ahead and just let it be 1 for each box. And then I'm going to figure out my critical points. So I'm going to start at 0, the quarter point. I'm going to add a quarter of a period, so that gives me pi over 4. The halfway point, I'm going to add half a period, so that gives me pi over 2. The 3/4 point would be 3 pi over 4, and our ending point is going to be 2 pi. No, sorry, pi, just pi. So when I go to graph this, and also let's do top and bottom line. And our top line, we're going to take D, which is the center line, and we're going to add the amplitude. So I have 5 plus 3, so I get 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Here will be the top. And the bottom line, 5 minus 3 equals 2. So here's our bottom line. And then the midline, that's just D. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 right here. And then in delta math, it's just going to ask me to plot those points. So I'm going to put 1 here. And I'm going to go ahead and go over 3 boxes. Just for each part of the graph, I'm going to go over 3 boxes. So then I have 1 there, and then 1 there, and then there. And it's going to look something like that. And don't worry, delta math will graph it for you. All right, so the next part of our lesson is we are going to write the graph from, we're going to write the equation from the graph. So looking at this graph here, and just remember, we're going to say y equals a sine of b x minus c plus d. And we're just always going to use sine for these graphs. So don't worry about is it sine or cosine, just use sine every time and you'll be fine. So A is our amplitude. Easy way to find the amplitude is you find your peak, which is 1, and then you find the minimum, which is -5, and the distance between them is actually twice the amplitude. So twice my amplitude is going to be 1 minus a -5, or 6. So 2 times that amplitude is 6, so therefore my amplitude is 3. So from there to the center line should be 3, and from the center line to the -5 should also be 3. My center line is located at D. And if I look at this graph here, 1 minus 3 puts my center line at -2. -5 plus 3 puts it at -2. And right here we have a coordinate as -2. So D equals -2. So I've got A, I've got D. Next I want B. And I'm going to get B by looking at the period. So to find the period, just pick 2 points on the graph. Pick either the mins or the maximums, and they have to be both min or both max. So if I start here at Q, and then I go over here to U, That's one period, because they're both maxes. So now the period of this graph, just take the x-coordinates of those two places. So I have 17 pi over 4 for point U, and I'm going to subtract pi over 4 from point Q. That gives me 16 pi over 4. Please reduce. So my period is 4 pi. From the period, I can then calculate B. So period equals 2 pi over B. So 4 pi equals 2 pi over B. And when you solve this, you're going to get B equals 1/2. So now I've got A is 3, B is 1/2, D is -2. C, my starting point, is going to depend upon which point I choose. So in this problem, it's saying we have point Q, point R, point S, point T, point U, and it says write the equation for the graph from the stated point. So I'm going to say, let's write the equation for point T. So for point T, that's going to be my starting point. I'm going to go and I'm going to grab that x-coordinate is 13 pi over 4. So that means C equals 13 pi over 4. So now my equation is going to be y equals A, and A is 3. Let's make this a little bit smaller so we can see everything. So A sine B x minus C plus D. So y equals A, which is 3, times the sine of B, which is 1/2, x minus C, 13 pi over 4, plus D. And D is a -2, so I'm just going to subtract 2. That's our equation if we start at point T. What if we started at point Q instead? Our equation would be a little bit different. So now C is going to equal, just grab the x-coordinate of point Q, that's pi over 4. And my equation is going to be y equals 3 sine of 1/2 x minus pi over 4 minus 2. Okay, so the only thing that changes when I change my starting point is the value of C. Everything else is going to stay the same. All right, that's it for today's lesson. Thank you for watching.